The new ABC News podcast is shedding light on breakthroughs in top crime cases. The Crime Scene Weekly will keep you up to date on the latest true crime headlines, hearing directly from survivors, investigators, and families searching for answers. And it's hosted by our own Brad Mielke of the ABC News Start Here podcast. And Brad is here to tell us all about it. So, Brad, how did this come together, and what can we expect from Crime Scene Weekly?
It's very exciting. You saw our imagery there, right? You got like the murder board. It's all happening, which you'd expect from me, right? Like I'm
the murder board,
right? Like I'm a very crimey sort of person, right? When you look at me, you go like, this guy's solving hardened
stuff.
That's right. So what we thought was there's so many true crime stories out there right now. Like I'm often covering, daily news, and we don't always have time for these stories that are kind of endlessly fascinating. But there's so many of them. There's so many cases that, by the way, keep evolving. They keep developing. And so I think what the thinking was here was, what if we had a podcast where Brad not only talked to some of our reporters who have been covering these cases for months or sometimes years, but what if we were able to come in every week and really take a quick drive around the block on all of these cases that so many of our true crime listeners who are watching 2020 every week know that are developing, but it's so much to keep track of.
So what are some of the cases you'll be covering?
So we're looking to cover cases that continue to evolve, but are also kind of telling us a lot about the world that we're living in. So our first episode debuts tomorrow. It's about the killing of Tupac Shakur several decades ago. And what's new here is ABC got access to the only man who's ever been arrested for it. So Keefe D is right now sitting in a jail cell awaiting trial, and our own ABC's Josh Margolin got to talk to him one-on-one. He's the only person from a broadcast network who had done this on camera. Keefe D said, I want to talk to this guy. And so Josh went in and talked to him. And so we got to sit down with Josh and really go over this interview in depth about this story of a man who wasn't arrested for decades, but put himself at the scene of the crime in conversations with police and then later in memoirs. Well, now Josh sits down with him and the guy tells him that was all made up. Actually, I wasn't at the scene of the crime. I was just telling people what they wanted to hear. So we go deep on that, but then we also walk around, the block with all these other cases as well.
So interesting. So the whole true crime thing is also interesting in and of itself, because so many people unwind this way, right? They say, I had a really stressful day,
this is comfort
so
food.
I need to relax by learning every gruesome detail of this triple murder. So what are you hoping people take away from this podcast?
Well, and the reason I think we do that, I think there's a reason that we're all so fascinated by this. It's not always front page news, but the reason it connects to all of us is because it ties in with so many of the things that do make front page news. Often these aren't stories of murder. They're stories about police taking marginalized groups seriously. Often it's not about the killing of 4 or 5 women and a serial killer. It's about how gender and sex and race and all these things intersect with how police do their work. There's all these societal issues that continue to affect all of us, and often they pop up in the worst ways possible. And that's when people start paying attention. And that is really what a lot of these true crime stories are. And that's why we just can't get enough, which is why I'm here for you.
All right. And we appreciate you, as always. Brad Mielke, thank you.
Thanks.
Brad Mielke, Solving Stuff. You can tune in. Maybe you should have named it that. You can tune into the Crime Scene Weekly starting tomorrow, March 20th, wherever you get your podcast.